For me, it's been over 10 years since I also had a dinner saying goodbye to the Polytechnic. And in 10 years, a lot of things happen. Actually, in the next 10 years, unfortunately, some of you will be dead. You will not be alive. Some of you will be very rich. Some of you will be married. Some of you will be single again. And in 10 years, there is just a lot of things that actually happen. And in time, there will be a distinction whereby when we meet some of you, you will be the top billionaires of the country, uprising. Some will go like, what happened to him? Such is life. And honestly, looking even in my own past, there's just a lot that happened in decades. Most of the times we look at time in a year, but a lot will just happen in the next 10 years. When you look at time, time is an enemy to someone who is not making progress. But time is something someone celebrates when you are making progress. Time becomes a judge of each one of us. The question I have for you is, where will you be in the next 10 years? I'm not talking about 1 year. I'm not talking about the next 3 months, but the next 10 years, the next decade. Where would you be? Tonight, as I look at you, I look at the young Mike who was graduating from University of Polytechnic, and the advice that I would be giving him as he's going into the industry. A lot of people, they say industry is a bad place, but it's a bad place or unfortunate place to those that are not making progress. I know you have been told about how bad the industry is, but that is for those that have not prepared. If you are prepared for industry, when there's a call for union, you don't show up. So what are the things that actually you need to do that will actually help you build a life that is so amazing? Talking of amazing life, let me share you my story. When I was getting outside Polytechnic, I made a vow before my colleagues, before my students, before everyone I met. I told them that I was never going to work, and I was going to go straight into starting a REMCA. So the REMCA people celebrate today is something that I started when I was a finale. When actually I was running around with my project. When actually I was approaching the Grace Week, that's the time I was registering REMCA construction, because I made a vow that I was going to build a company. And I told myself that I was going to be one of the richest people, not in Malawi, but in the continent of Africa. I see Dangote as my competitor. That's my standard. That's how I see myself. But how do you make progress? Very quickly, number one, the greatest distinction between those that make it and those that fail, it's knowledge. Knowledge is power. It's so sad that most of us, when we graduate from here, that's the time we say goodbye to books. We look at assignments, studying as a torture for our lives. But unfortunately, if you are going to make progress, then knowledge is a must. And you need lots of knowledge. Because success requires you to know a lot of things. And as I'm talking to you, this month, by now, I've already covered over 30 books. I'm not a student, but I'm a student of success. Because I know that if I'm going to become the next multi-billionaire in dollars, then I will need a lot of knowledge. I need to inform myself. What does the war in Gaza mean for Malawi? What does war in Ukraine mean? How does it affect economics? And for your information, if you are running a company, you need so much knowledge. You need to understand human resource. You need to understand accounting. You need to understand marketing. You need to understand organizational structure. On top of that, you also need to understand law. And the list is endless. You talk about leadership. Unfortunately, you can never pretend those things. You need to know them. What about if a lawyer comes and there's a case whereby there's nobody to represent you immediately? You need to become your own lawyer and really fight with the lawyers as though you were one. Number 2, Steve Covey said, to know and not to do is not to know. What does it mean? If you have the knowledge and you can't use it, then you become useless. And unfortunately, this is the sad story about most of the graduates when they finish school. That you expect that someone was at Luanar, somebody did a program that they would deliver, but most of us, we forget our knowledge the moment we finish exams. So the second skill that you need to do is to invest in your skill, invest in your career, become outstanding. Are you an economist? Whatever program you are studying, make sure that you are becoming the best at it. Number 3, guys, I've been in the industry for the past 10 years, but now I'm convinced that sometimes it's not what you know, but who you know. So as you go into the industry, make sure that you also build a network. Like somebody says, your network determines your net worth. So start building relationships. And some of you, when you are on campus, maybe you haven't been doing a good job with your colleagues. Cherish your colleagues. Trust you me. Some of your colleagues here, they will become branch managers in a certain bank who will easily approve your loan. Some of you will go into a procurement teams whereby when they are requesting for a company, they will remember you that there was this friend. But if you don't build network, if you don't build connections, you will end up as a failure. Because this life, it's about connections, the networks. So when you go into the industry, push to build more networks. And some of you, maybe you will not get the job immediately. Sometimes you volunteer yourself, get known, get to know people. Because connections are very important. After you build connections, which takes me to the 4th point. Apart from connections, the next thing that you need to start building in your life is what I call capital. In my personal study of accounting, there is an equation that almost every accountant uses of capital, which we say capital is equal to assets less liabilities. Or, in other words, your equity or your capital or who you are is really determined by things that are assets or liabilities. So some of you, when you go into the industry, as young people, I know most of the things we want to do is to have fun. We want to travel to Dubai. We want to have fun. We want to eat money. Yes, eating money is good. But one of the things the mistake you shouldn't make is not to build your assets, your asset base. Make sure you have property. As an entrepreneur, I had one of the brilliant ideas ever when I was coming into the industry about housing and construction. Trust you me, I presented with the banks, they liked it, some we were discussed even at board level. But one thing that came down to, what collateral does he have? When you have assets, when you have collateral, even for a business, they will go for you. Now, when we are talking about capital, I'm not also just talking about business. Sometimes we are even talking about investing in yourself as capital. There are some things that actually diminish your value. You talk of alcohol. You talk of doing crazy things. Those things, they eat your social capital. So when we are talking about capital, we are not also just looking at the physical assets, but we are also looking at even those intangible assets. So if you are going to make it out there, invest in things that bring value to your life. Things that will make you outstanding. Going to the fifth point. After you have built the assets, you have built the capital, the last thing that you need for the sixth thing that you need for your life is to have a good reputation, a brand. Have you guys noted about if in iPhone, when they just say there's iPhone 15, how people queue to go buy iPhone? We don't even ask the integrity of how new it is. Someone has said sometimes the iPhone will just change the cover and they say that we have changed things. But because they have built a reputation, we all line up and say, you know what, I'm going to get an iPhone. Or when you are getting, let's not go far. Let's go to game stores. Game, they have built a reputation that they have things that are more original. Some things that you find them actually in the next shop very cheap, the same things, but you still go buy to game. Why? Because there is a reputation. So out there, after you have built your network, after you have built your capital, one of the things you need to do is to protect your reputation. Reputation, like in the book of the ancient word of God, the book of Proverbs says, a good name is better than riches. Protect your name. Don't allow anyone to just tarnish your name. That's why when somebody say crazy things about your name, sue them, fight them, because that's your name. That's your reputation. It represents who you are. It's your legacy. So build a great reputation. Lastly, when you are going into the industry, which is the most important thing, I deliberately had to put it at the end so that in case you forget everything else, this one thing you should not forget. It's what I call control. Control. What do I mean by control? Being in the industry for the past 10 years, I've seen a lot of people who had a lot of capital, who had a lot of resources, who made a lot of money, but at the end of the day, they destroyed their own lives. Actually, to some people, they were better before they had built the wealth because it destroyed them. But eye for eye, something I prophesy which has helped me to hold my control from the time I was broke to the time that I'm rich, is God. I don't say this without shame. I'm a born-again Christian. And knowing Jesus Christ is something else that personally, it has helped me build the business. Because of my integrity of trying to please God, I was saved from Cashgate, which took away a lot of businesses and some of my colleagues. You can do all other things on yourself, but the greatest control, it only comes with God, because God is the one who directs the steps. So in case you forget anything else, when you are going home, I would invite you to also actually know God, because it's through God that actually you are safe, that actually you are better. Ladies and gentlemen, with these few words, I guess there were a few. I'm wishing you all the best as you do your projects, as you do exams, but most importantly, let's go into the industry and win. I know you have heard a lot of bad reports about the industry, but the industry is a good place if you know what you want to do with your life. And I trust you me, God will bless you and you rise up. Thank you so much, and God literally bless you. Enjoy the rest of the night.